Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. And welcome to PPM Works webinar on project detail pages, tips and tricks. We have a good session today. I think a topic that's not often covered, but I know it's something that I find that pretty much anytime I'm configuring a project online environment, or I want it to make a particular change to a workflow process, or I need to add a custom field to capture additional information for projects, editing the project detail page and having that skill set is really important for a project online admin. And so hopefully you'll find today's session of value. Thank you for joining us. Our agenda today is we'll go through just the general project detail page overview, where to find them, why they exist, what they're for. We'll talk about page properties, and we will also go through creating and editing the project detail pages. We'll go through PDPs and specifically workflows, and how we can make use of workflows to control the visibility of the PDPs. And then finally, if you have questions and answers, you can always email us at info@ppmworks.com. We love to hear from you and love to get feedback on our webinars. So I guess me, I am Jenny Ward, Jennifer as my mom calls me. I have been in IT for over 20 years now. I leave it at 20 years just because I'm horrified to make the number any higher than that, because I feel way younger than my actual number indicates. I have a history as a project server admin and a SharePoint administrator, but also more recently I have been a service delivery, I had a service delivery team working for me. So I have a really good sense of client needs and what we can do to help solve problems and relate to clients and their particular processes and procedures. I really enjoy solving puzzles and fixing things, and I really enjoy connecting with people and meeting people. I like to have a good time at work. I love my job, and I like to have a good time while doing it. And so I think there's always an opportunity to learn new things and to discover new things. And that's why I really enjoy the webinars, because I get to share that knowledge with all of you. So thanks again for joining. So you might ask why clients choose PPM Works. And specifically, I think it has to do with the way that we interact with clients. My history with PPM is that I went to them as a client initially. And when that SharePoint admin role that I did and project server admin role, we had implemented a project server on-prem environment for Project Server 2010. And we needed someone to come in with more expertise than we had to ensure that we had done everything according to best practices. And so PPM Works came in and analyzed our environment, and luckily gave us a passing grade, so that was good. Took the heat off with our bosses. But that's how I got to know PPM Works and understand the work that they do all day, every day. And so now I'm really fortunate to be part of the team here. We offer many different solutions and services, including project online quick starts, and we do data warehousing, lots of reporting, project configuration, as I talked about. Pretty much every new client that we have wants to have a new project online environment configured, and that's probably our favorite thing to do. I also love doing Power BI and dashboards. If you are new to Power BI, I encourage you to check out some of our webinars. I've done a couple myself, and we have another one coming up shortly on making reports not only work effectively, but look attractive as well, which of course is important, particularly when you have a tool as powerful as Power BI. We also work with Microsoft Planner and integrating Planner with Project Online. There's lots of opportunity in the Office 365 environment to make use of all of the great tools that Microsoft has developed to work collaboratively and to integrate different tools together. So we love doing that. Our learning objectives today will be for you to understand the structure and purpose of the project detail page. We're going to go through and we're going to create a project detail page, and then also edit the PDP. Maybe not necessarily in that order. We might look at one that already exists first and edit the page, and then look at the layout and the properties of the page. But then finally, we'll talk about controlling the visibility of the project detail page with a workflow. There may be a situation where you have different stages of a project where you want certain information to be editable and not other information. So if you had a budget phase, for instance, and you wanted to first be able to have the project manager enter what the initial budget of the project is, and then the actual budget of the project, you wouldn't necessarily want them to be able to go back and edit that original number if they had more of a variance than they should have. So you can control user behavior with that method as well. It's another good option. So kind of questions for you to just ask yourself as we're going through this webinar. I want you to think about the fact that right now, probably without even realizing it, you're using project detail pages if you're ever creating projects in the Project Online environment. So if you go to the Project Online ribbon and you select New Project and select any one of your enterprise project types that perhaps you've created or your administrator has created, or maybe you're just using the built-in enterprise project type that's there, you are in fact using a project detail page. That is a new project detail page type. I know that's lots of projects in one sentence, but it is the new project type of page, and it's designed just for that, for when a new project is created. You can create those yourself and decide what information you want to be put on the project first, and then it can go on to the additional pages, which would just be project pages available at any point in the project process. You might want to ask if there are specific details or information you need to see on the PDP. If you use the built-in project detail page, it's going to have any enterprise custom field that you've ever created will appear on that page. The only way to hide those fields is to delete them. So that's why making your own PDP that perhaps doesn't have every single enterprise project field on it that you've ever created is a smart thing to do. Then you get to pick and choose the information that you need to have entered for the projects. You might want to think if you'd need a particular library or list added to a PDP. Like any SharePoint page, you can add different kinds of web parts. We'll go through that, but SharePoint lists and libraries are one of those items. So perhaps you want the user to be able to enter metrics on a project just at that top project level. You could create a list for metrics and they could go in and they could enter the information there on a project detail page, if that's information that wouldn't necessarily be on a project schedule. And then finally, do you use a workflow to control which pages show which pages? Do you use a workflow at all? And if you don't, could you benefit from the use of a workflow, perhaps to control that behavior like we talked about with budgets? So lots of things to think about. You know, like I said, it seems like it might be kind of a simple topic just to cover project detail pages in one webinar, but it's something that I think is kind of underutilized, and for somebody who hasn't ever done any type of admin in SharePoint or Project Online at all, it can be a daunting topic, and so that's why I wanted to cover it. I know that when I first started editing the pages, I'm not gonna lie, I was scared out of my mind. I thought, am I gonna break something? Is this okay for me to be putting this web part here in the page? Now I'm completely comfortable with it, and also I know if I break anything, I'm able to fix it. So you know, even if you're worried about that, we're always here to help you with that kind of stuff too. So don't hesitate to try new stuff is what I encourage you to do. So let's first do the project detail page overview. So they can be customized to your heart's content. I love that expression, to your heart's content. As much as you want to do, you can do. There are lots of different web parts. We'll look at this expanded ribbon on the page edit section of the page, but lots of different web parts. We're only going to touch on a couple of them today, but all kinds of different options that you can use. They work just like any other SharePoint page would that you could edit. So with the exception of the fact that you then also have Project Online web parts available to you. So there's a whole other set of those that comes in the Project Online space. You can also add jQuery and JavaScript to your pages. If you have any expertise at all or know anybody who does, who can control web pages with jQuery, this is the best place to do that because you don't have a whole lot of control over the appearance of the page. Like for instance, in terms of white space on the page, we have a really handy script that I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how we use that just kind of as a cheat. And then you can also decide, as we discussed, which fields will appear on the page. So rather than using the built-in project detail pages that simply put every enterprise custom field that you have in your environment on those pages, if you create your own, then you can decide, okay, these are the fields that I want to see. These are the fields that the users are going to see. Okay, so let's go to our environment first and foremost. Okay, so in PWA settings here, okay, we are going to go in here. It's on the gear, and then it's in PWA settings. Okay, and we're going to click on that link, and it's going to bring us to this page. Okay, and then down in the workflow and project detail pages section, okay, we're going to go to project detail pages. Okay, and here is now the whole list of them that we've got here. Okay, now you'll see here, these are now identical. If I go back on this page, I've just gotten them all queued up so that they're ready. But I want to point out one thing. Here, you'll see that we're in the PWA settings page here, and there is a project logo here, this green P, the project online logo, project professional logo as well. And here you'll see that I've got a SharePoint Online logo on several of these pages and others Project Online. The reason for that is although the Project Online environment resides on a SharePoint platform, some of the pages are specific to Project Online. So you're not going to have a PWA settings page, for instance, on your SharePoint site. Okay, you're not going to have a PWA, you're not going to have workflow stages available on your SharePoint site because those are specific to Project Online. However, you are going to have site libraries, which this is an example of. So our project detail pages is simply just a library of pages. Okay, so we can go through and we can add new project detail pages here. Okay, before we do that, let's take a look at one that already exists. Okay, and we're going to look at the project create new project detail page. Okay. First, we're going to go to details, as I pointed out, and that's going to open the details pane. So how I did that was I clicked on this show actions. It looks kind of like a sideways ellipses. I don't really know why they've decided 3 dots on top of one another is a good thing to convey that, but it does. So that is the show actions. And then once you click that, then the details shows up at the bottom of that menu. So that's going to open the detail panel here. And then here we can change what we want it to be called. Here we can change the description. We can change the name of it here, the display name. May have reached the limit. No, I was thinking. Sometimes it takes a minute to respond. So see, now I can have them both called project create page, project create page. You'll see here project create.aspx is that's actually the address that will come up in the address bar up here in the URL. We recommend no spaces in those just because it makes the URL look a little bit neater. You can see here project detail pages here when it's got spaces in it, those spaces are replaced with %20s. Okay, not as attractive as it would be and not as easy to read as it would be if there were no spaces in that. Of course, Microsoft didn't take our advice on that, and that this page actually has the spaces in it. But that's why we recommend that those spaces be left out of the .aspx file names. Okay, so let's open this page up now. And you're going to see that we're here on a very basic general project information page. We just got a few project enterprise custom fields here on this page, and we've got 3 tabs on the ribbon here. Browse, which would bring us back from whence we came. Project, which will be what would appear when you're actually in a project looking at this project detail page. We're at the top level site now actually editing the project detail page, so all of these project buttons in the ribbon are disabled here. But that's because here we really want to be on the page and we're going to edit the page. So here's the scary button I talked about that I was so afraid to click many years ago. Now it's one of my favorite things to do. So as you can see, this page has a few sections to it. It has a header, it has a body, and it has a right column, okay? In the body of the page, we've got a project basic info web part, okay? So I'm going to go and I'm going to edit this web part. There's a little arrow here that lights up when you hover over it, okay? And we're going to click the arrow on there, and we're going to click edit web part, and then a pane will open over here. You'll see at the top part of this pane, we've got project detail pages, project fields listed here. And so we're going to click modify there. And you'll see the project fields that are available are here on the left-hand side. And the project fields that are already in this view, you see they're in the same order here. Name is project name, project departments, start, owner, project team, project priority, okay? For fun, let's just add the % complete field here. We're going to click OK. You'll see this Chrome type is set to title only. Okay, that's fine. That's just going to leave whatever title we have here. It's going to show on the web part. Okay, so we're going to leave it just as it is, and we're going to click apply, and then you'll see the % complete field showed up there, and we're going to click OK. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stop editing this page, and we're going to go back to this list. Okay, so now the page is exactly as it was, except it has now the % complete field in here. Okay, so we're going to go back to the project detail page here, and this time what we're going to do, I'm going to uncheck this so that we don't have any of these active. You see that the ribbon here changes at the top when I activate those. So I'm going to uncheck that. And now this time I'm going to create a new project detail page. Woohoo, now it's getting fun. So once this comes up, this is where we're going to get to select what layout of the template we're going to use. Once you make a decision on this, it cannot be changed. Okay, so that's why it is important to choose wisely here. For this reason, we recommend selecting the one with the most parts on it. For me, that is this one, header, footer, 4 columns, top row. You've got kind of a middle section here, middle left and middle right, left, right, top, middle. I don't even know what these are called here, but headers and footers, okay? Even if you only want to use the header on this page, that's fine. But then what's good about that is, you know, if we went here and we had the header, you could still always only use the header. If you wanted to just use this and only use one section, that's fine. But you then couldn't ever add any more visual interest to the page if you decided you wanted a left-hand column, some middle columns, a right-hand column. You're only ever going to have the header to choose from in some of these others, okay? So we're going to choose this one, and we're going to click Create. We've got to name it first. It caught me. Test PDP, okay? I leave this unchecked because you can always change the name after. What it will do is if there is another test PDP, it will put a 1 after it like this, okay, if you've already got one that's created. Better safe than sorry. Don't overwrite any that already exist. You can undo all the work that you've already done, okay? So let's click Create. Here we go, a page with many, many parts. So let's go to the Add Web part here on the header. I'm just going to do it in the header. And over here on the left-hand side, you see we have a Project Web App section. Okay, lots of different sections here. You know, we've got just the apps. That would be all the SharePoint lists. Maybe you want the project calendar in there. You know, we've got lots of different forms here. We've got libraries that exist also. You can see we can stretch this out even further because we have lots of libraries. We're going to talk about this scripts library after. But these arrows will help you move back and forth. If you don't see everything you think you should see there, that's probably because you just need to move over to the right. But we're going to use this Project Web App section, and we're simply going to put in a basic info section. Okay, that's going to allow us, you see it's going to be added to the header. It's going to allow us to put project enterprise custom fields in this section of the page. okay? It's going to come in super basic. It's just going to say basic info. Project fields have not been defined. And so we're going to need to either contact your administrator, or we're just going to, for the sake of argument today, be the administrator ourselves, because that's what knowledge is all about. So here we go. We're going to modify this section now, okay, just like I did before, but now they're blank, okay? I've got none here on the right. All right, so I'm going to select one here on the left, and then I'm going to type a letter. What I did there is I typed just P, and that's going to bring me to the P's in the list. If I were to type PR, it would not, if I keep typing, it's not going to behave. So I tend to type only one letter at a time. So I'm going to do S next to go to start date, and I'm going to scroll down to where start is. I'm going to put that there. And then I'm going to click again. I'm going to do F for finish, and then I'm going to click OK. All right. So now we've got project name, start, and finish will be the 3 displayed project fields that are on that list. Title is still set to basic info, so I'm going to change it to project info instead, because that makes more sense. We're going to leave the Chrome type as title, because that's going to display this title conveniently for me so that I don't have to do it. And then we're going to click apply. And then this will refresh, the page will refresh, and we will see that those sections now exist on the page. Okay, so we're going to click stop editing. I want to point out another thing here. I happen to right now be working in Internet Explorer. I do still prefer using Internet Explorer for this kind of page layout work, because there are a couple of things, although I use Edge all the time. You see I have a session of Edge open here too. Edge is what I use all the time for my own web surfing and research. But if I'm actually developing, I'm using Internet Explorer just because I can rely on everything cooperating, I guess is the best word there, okay? So let's take a look now at, if we now go and edit this page, you'll see it's going to show just like it did a moment ago. We've got this in the header. We have the ability to add web parts to all of these different sections here still, okay? And that would change the layout of the page slightly, but it would still mostly keep them in these containers, okay? So there you have it. The page is laid out. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but this is a pet peeve of ours here at PPM Works, but see this kind of big margin here at the top of the page? Like, it looks kind of like this should be snuggled up more with this top ribbon so that it more aligned with project. That's something that SharePoint does in the style sheet for the environment just by default. And so the reason that it does that is, I'm not going to lie, unknown to me. I do not like that it does that, but it does. And so we have a little workaround for that. So what we do is we have in our site contents, we have a scripts library. I've created this script library so that all of any kind of code reference that I need on any page is just conveniently and easily stored in this central location. This is a JavaScript that we've added called remove extra space. It's just very simple code that squishes everything together. It adjusts the margin sizes on the page, okay? So I'm going to show you how we're going to insert that into a page. So I'm going to copy this link. I'm going to let it copy and copy there. And then I'm going to go back to the project detail page and I'm going to edit it again. Now, how do we get that code into the page, you might ask? Well, we do that with a content editor web part. So we're going to add another web part. This time, because it's code, I am going to add it to the footer part of the page, okay? This time we're going to go to media and content, which is where the content editor happens to be, okay? It's already selected, so I'm going to add it to the page. We'll give it a second to refresh. And then in the same way, we're going to click the down arrow here. You'll notice when I click away, that goes away, but once I hover over it, it lights up again. I'm going to click Edit Web Part. And I'm going to go up here, and I am going to simply copy that link into here. Now, as you can see, this is copying in a very unattractive way, okay? So I'm actually going to retype the way that link copied, okay? So I'm going to just type the path. scripts and remove extra space .txt. And there's some extra characters in here that I'm going to remove. So now this is the very basic, neat and tidy path. Okay, we've got ppmw sharepoint.com/pwa demo/scripts. That's the name of the library. And remove extra space.txt. That's the name of the file. So hopefully that link works. Let's give it a shot and see. And we're going to get an error. And that's what I expected, so that's good. It says cannot retrieve the specified URL from the content link property. Let's check our work again. Sometimes you'll find that this does not behave as nicely as it should. I have days where that copy of the script will not work at all, and I just have to actually open it someplace else. Like if I go back to site contents here and I go to scripts, see, and I go into remove extra space here, and I open it. I can try if it will just let me do that. Let's try to do that instead. And see how it gives another error. So we're going to move on because that would be the way that we are adding a script to the page. It will allow you to edit here. Another option that you could do instead is if we went back to that script, we could also actually put the script in that web part. The reason I don't prefer to do that is because if you ever needed to edit the script, you'd have to edit it on every page if you did that, okay? But if you instead just added it in a script instead, in a library, then you're just referencing that someplace else, which is a better way to do it, okay? So we're going to edit this web part again and see if it's going to let us modify that. It's not, so I'm going to remove it, okay? So delete will be the way that we get rid of that web part, okay? That's another good lesson though. You know, if something is not behaving, sometimes you just need to go back to it and try again. This is what I do all day, every day, perfectly normal. And it just is a good way to show you can put a content editor web part in there. You can get the script to work. We have many pages that use that feature. And so that will be the way that you do it, okay? So let's take a look back at our page here for page properties. So we went through the page properties, okay? And we talked about how you can change the details of the PDPs. You can enter the name of them, you can enter the display name, you can modify that. It doesn't necessarily have to match what the actual name is, particularly if you're leaving spaces out of this name, then you can put the space in here just so it displays nicely. You can enter descriptions so that users have a better sense of what the pages are for. We went through the creating and editing of the PDPs. We talked about creating a new project detail page and then selecting the one with the header, footer, 4 columns, and the top row, just so that it gives you the most options for the future layout of the page, okay? And now let's take a look at how we can control the view of these pages with workflows, okay? On our workflow stage section in PWA, where we'll go to in a moment, you'll see that we have workflow stages here on the left and then the phases underneath them, or the stages actually underneath them. And then the visible project detail pages are what's of interest here, okay? So you see here, concept, business case, and selection, and then we've got project start. These two have our project status and our strategic impact sections here, the project detail pages by these names, project status and strategic impact. But project start does not have those in it. It could be because we no longer want a PM editing the project status at that point. We want that to be set in stone at that point, or at least until it moves on to the next phase. It also could be that this is just kind of a review milestone phase here that we're looking at. But also, it just could be so that, because this doesn't really even need to be referenced at this point. So we can hide these pages and it cleans up the menu on the left. So let's take a look here if we go to our workflow stages here. Okay, so this is the screenshot. We just looked at a screenshot of this. If I slide this over, you can see here's one that does have the financials page, but it doesn't have project status and strategic impact. So let's take a look at how we get those in there. So just like before, when we were able to move things for available items on the left, we saw it for available fields before. Now we can move them over to the selected. So if I wanted to add strategic impact or project status back here, I'd use the arrow just like I did before, and I'd move it over to the right. Okay, so now if I click save here, right, we're in, just to be clear, we're in the PD review page. Previously, it was only project details, schedule, and financials. We click save. Let me give it a moment to think. And then you'll see, if we go down to that section again, to the PD review, now we see that project status is in that section, okay? So once we're in a project, let's go to our Gold Lab project. You'll see we have different project detail pages here. If I were on a different stage of the project here, I go to project status here, I might not see the financials any longer. I might not see strategic impact any longer. I might just see project details, schedule, and project status. Okay, so it cleans up this left section so that things that the users don't need to be bothered with at that particular stage of the project are hidden. So it's really handy in that regard. Okay, so if we go back here to our, I'm going to go back to the workflow stages, back to PWA settings again, and we go to workflow stages. I'm going to go back to that PD review, and I'm just going to undo what I did. And you'll see you have the ability to do that as well. So we can go back and we can now remove project status from that, and we can save it. Now, one other thing I want to point out to you here too, just because I find workflows really interesting, and we have an upcoming webinar on workflows coming up, is you can also control the fields themselves with workflow stages. So if you want entire fields to be unavailable at all during a particular workflow stage, you can do that. You have to enable workflow control in each of these fields, but then you actually set which fields would be showing at this particular workflow stage, okay? We don't have any of these set to do that in this one. They're all just visible where they need to be. But if I go here in project details and schedule, financials, you'll see nothing shows up down there, but that's the way that you would do it. So you have to set that feature in the fields themselves, but I encourage you to take a look at our webinar on designing workflows in SharePoint Designer, and you'll get some insight into that as well. Okay, so now we removed that extra project status PDP, so now I'm going to save this. And then we wait. There it goes. And it brings us back. Okay, so just to recap, you can get everywhere you need to get for these project detail page controls here in, you go to the gear and then to PWA settings, and then you're going to be under workflow and project detail pages. Specifically, project detail pages is going to bring you to the library that contains all of the existing project detail pages. You see we have this new test PDP that we've just created. When you create the new one, you're going to make sure you choose the one that has the most parts on it, the most sections of the page, so that you can, going forward, make use of those if you ever need them. If you don't ever need them, that's fine, but they'll be there for you. You can't ever add more sections to the page, unfortunately, not without an act of Congress anyway. So that's the safest bet to do that. You can control the visibility of the project detail pages with workflows, a really handy tool that lets you hide and show different pages at different stages of the workflow. And you also can edit the properties of the pages too. If you just decide, oh, you know, I know this is called a project details page, but it's really more project general info. So if you wanted to do that, you go to details and you can just simply call it display name, and you can change it here to project general info, okay? And then that saves the minute that you click on another field, okay? So you can close out of that once you uncheck it. New is up here in the top left corner for new project detail page. You know, there is an upload option here. Because it's a library, it allows you to upload a page. I suppose if you had one page in one environment, you could bring it into another, but it might cause you more trouble than it's worth when it comes to how simple it is to create them. Now, that being said, if you have one here that you really love the layout of, you can copy this to the same library. So see, it's automatically going to set it to the same library, and it's going to allow you to make a duplicate of that, and you'll see it will refresh the page in a moment. Copying right now. Sometimes it takes just a moment. It's got to get all the way to the cloud and back. There we go. So now it's project detail pages 1, okay? And so now it's exactly what the other page was if I wanted to go in and use the exact same layout of the page, but maybe change a few fields on the page, I can do that. Okay. So that about covers our topics today. We encourage you to send questions and answers if you have any comments that you want to add, or maybe other suggestions that we could add to our blog. That's great too. You can send those questions to info@ppmworks.com. Like I said, we love doing webinars and we have them often. October 18th, we have one coming up on managing task types. This is something that's very elusive to users, myself included sometimes. Why does my duration and or work keep changing? We also have one on automating project status reports. It's really helpful if you have lots of clients to whom you have to send status reports. It's a good example. And then we talked about workflows a lot during this webinar, so we're going to have one specifically on creating project online workflows using SharePoint Designer. I really encourage you to join that one because it's going to give kind of a bigger context to the workflows in general, showing how they're created in the first place and how they make use of that control capability. And then on December 6th, that will be me hosting Power BI, making your report look professional, you know, or silly. If you want to make a report look silly, we can do that too. The world is your oyster. So that will be working in Power BI desktop. It's a really fantastic tool that I love, and I encourage you to join that. You can visit ppmworks.com/events to register and view our full event schedule. You can earn PDU credits by joining these webinars, so it's a good way to get good bang for your buck here when you join these webinars and take time out of your busy schedule to do so. Please feel free to connect with me via LinkedIn and also with PPM Works. You can find us at ppmworks.com. Also, you can find our blog at ppmworks.com/blog. There are some specific blogs that are available for this particular topic. You know, so if you need a quick reference sheet where you can go back and take a look, you can do that. One of them is editing the project detail pages. That'll be a good quick cheat sheet on what we did today. And then also project level field missing from project detail pages. I really like that blog post because it's a really good example of something where even though we didn't really get to the root cause of what was causing a particular client issue, having a problem where a project level field was missing from a detail page, we found a workaround. You know, we can't always get to the root of the problem, particularly when it comes to cloud environments, you know, where we can't really get to the correlation IDs that are showing as errors on a page, for instance, or we just can't get to what is causing the actual issue to happen. But that doesn't mean we can't find a way to work around it. So that's a really good example of that. It's real life, what a project server admin goes through all the time. So get linked in with me, get linked in with PPM Works, send questions to info@ppmworks.com. We'd love to hear from you, so please get in touch with us. Thank you so much for joining today. I hope that you found the information helpful, and I hope you can make good use of it in your environment. Take care.